So let's read over these real quick, and I'll give my quick opinion. And really, the main focus of it is going to be the first one, if my memory serves, which my memory is pretty terrible. So, embracing the darkness, and it belongs to the First Light Legacies, found on the road into First Light. Albert. I won't be returning to the settlement, and I suspect everyone will be relieved, my own mother most of all. But you know that in the decades since we arrived on these accursed shores, my burden has been far the worse to hers. Okay, so he's not coming back to First Light. He thinks everybody's going to be happy that he's not coming back. His mother should be the happiest. And that the decades since they arrived, his burden has been worse than his mother's. Okay. It's damned unnatural for a child to watch a parent remain young as they grow old. Why I'm one of the handful here cursed to continue aging, I will never comprehend. I tried to accept my mother's youth, but after she became constable, it was impossible. Watching her take command with such vigor has only hastened my decay. Even today I listened as she and Artificer Kim made plans for some bright future. They don't realize how stupid they sound. That paragraph has a lot of implications that I think are that need to be explored. Whether we grow old here or not, whether we suffer or thrive, none of us will get the peace of eternal slumber, and without the promise of death, I simply do not see the point in pretending that we are living. I thank you for your friendship, Albert, but I must now turn my back on First Light and embrace the darkness, whatever that may bring. Aethelgard Oaks. So, I actually read this and then in the game during the beta, and I ran back to go double check and looked at the constable's name, and it was in fact still Oaks. So at whatever point this was written, she is still the constable. She hasn't been promoted, she hasn't been demoted. So I think we can infer from that the point in which this was written isn't some huge difference between the point that this was written and the point that we're reading it. Now it could be a couple 100 years, it could be 2 years, it could be 2 months, right? We don't really know, but being that she became after she became constable, it would imply that she was actively trying to become constable, and somebody who's seeking power like that, they're most likely not going to stop ever. They're going to try to keep getting more and more power, right? That's what I think. So I think that the time that this was written and the time that we're reading it isn't an extraordinarily long amount of time. I think that we're probably looking at a couple of years, maybe, at the most. That'd be my opinion. Now, let's look at the other thing here. The other thing that I really want to explore here, and if anybody is interested in this lore and is interested in the way that the eternal life on this island works, please, in the chat, let me know what you think. It's damned unnatural for a child to watch a parent remain young as they grow old. Okay, so if everybody that is alive on the island and isn't already a zombie and has not fallen to corruption should be eternal, right? Like their soul's never gonna leave. They are in this perpetual state of, youth at the point that they landed. Like our character, the NPCs in town that we interact with, so on and so forth. We do see in-game exceptions to that rule with I can't remember his name. The guy who kind of like lives in the little swamp area. A lot of people are always fishing there. But he grew old, and he's been there for a long time. And he even said, you know, I've been here for a long time, essentially. But this specifically is that Aethelgard here is growing older while his mother stays the same age. Why? If everybody else is not aging, why is he? And as he says later, let's see, why am I one of the handful here cursed to continue aging? I will never comprehend. So he doesn't even know why, but he understands that he is one of the handful that are cursed to continue aging. So it's not just him, there are other people who will continue aging. Do they die? What happens to their soul whenever they die of old age? Did they become zombies? Did they become ancient guardians? Do they... Obviously he's not corrupted, because the lore pages we got from the corrupted are written in a different language that only the corrupted can understand, that only they can comprehend, right? And him saying, I will never comprehend, implies that not even him, and not the handful of others, understand why they've continued to age. I've tried to accept my mother's youth, but after she became constable, it was impossible. Why? Why couldn't he accept that his mother wasn't going to grow old? What happened, but after she became constable, it was impossible? Why? What about becoming constable made it impossible for him to accept his mother's youth? What defining factor happened when she took that office that made it impossible for him to... Obviously he comprehends that she's not going to age and that he is. But something about her gaining the office of constable made him unable to accept that any longer. Why? Watching her take command with such vigor has only hastened my decay. Okay, that's another really interesting line. I'm telling you, this paragraph right here has so much implication. Watching her take command with such vigor has only hastened my decay. Again, why is that happening? If we're taking it literally, then watching her take command with such vigor, with such youthful aggressiveness, has hastened his own decay. Is there some kind of emotional component? Is it like, if you become envious, if you become jealous, if you're filled with negative emotions, does that hasten your own decay? If you're one of these cursed people that's continuing to age? Or is it that your own attitudes, your own emotions, your own jealousy, and all these negative emotions are what's causing you to begin aging, and the rest of people have accepted their fate and don't have these extreme negative feelings? Could that be what's going on? But now again, we'd have to be taking this line literally, and that it's actually hastening the decay at which he is aging if if he has these negative feelings. Even today, I listened as she and Artificer Kim made plans for some bright future. They don't realize how stupid they sound. Okay, so again, he's being really negative. Which, you know, if he has been watching them stay young as he grows old, maybe he has got some sort of deep-rooted resentment towards them, and he is just pissed. Like, that's the whole reason for this line. Maybe that's all that is. But again, going back to the only hastened my decay bit, is it the negative emotions that are increasing that trouble? There's a lot of implications in that one. So there's a second half to this lore page, right? These lore pages. And if we click this here, the First Light Legacies, it's the chapter belongs to Tales of the First Light. And there's 2 pages associated with it, right? So let's read the second page real quick. Constable Oak's journal. Found at the constable's desk in First Light. March 18th. I have long since lost track of how long I've been on Aeternum, and other than the vague recollection of bearing children, I can't remember my life in the old world. I don't know if it's time that's taken the toll on my memory, or all the lies. Each year, they've piled higher, and I can no longer sort the truth from the false. Watching Aethelgard slowly shrivel in body and spirit, I forced myself into the habit of putting on a hopeful smile no matter how I felt inside. Saints know I've tried. For his sake, I've risked everything in a desperate bid to escape this island, but as with everything else here, it ended with disappointment. For some reason, I still remember the smell of his skin when he was a newborn, but in the years before he left, Aethelgard smelled like a sick old man. It reached the point where I couldn't even get close to him. I'll never forgive myself for that. I only hope where he is now, he has found some measure of peace. Okay, so this is the other half of that story, right? And we've also got a lot to unpack here. It's that, one, she's lost track of how long she's been on Aeternum. And she has vague recollections of giving birth to her children. So she says bearing children. That's, to me, that's plural. Instead of bearing a child, bearing children, which, I don't know, it could go either way with that. So maybe there's more than one there. But really, the big takeaway from that is she's been there so long that she can't remember the specifics of birthing her children. That's a pretty big event in someone's life. So she'd probably been there quite a while. I can't remember my life in the old world. I can't even remember my life in the old world. She's gotta have been there quite some time. I don't know if it's the time that's taken a toll on my memory or all the lies. What lies? What lies has Constable Oakes been telling, and to what end? What? Were they just a bunch of little white lies? Were they malicious lies? Were they lies to get her into the office of constable? We don't know. But she has some kind of lie that she's been telling a lot of people. Well, I say a lot of people, I'm assuming. Because if she got to the office of constable, you know, she had to step over some people. And I'm assuming lie to a lot of people. Each year, they piled higher. and I can no longer sort the truth from the false. So she's believing her own lies at that point, right? Watching Aethelgard. So, real quick, Aethelgard, right? That makes me think Norse. And we've seen in some of the cinematics and some of the artwork from the intro cinematic and the what's it called? The game trailer, that there were like Norse ships, right? And so she has been there so long that she can't remember, right? So let's see, peak of Norse power. Okay, so the peak of Norse power was between 1240 and 1319. And our game takes place in roughly the 17th century, right? Timeline of New World. Game. There we go. Okay. No, New World is set in an alternative history in the Twilight Age of Expedition and takes place in a fictional and supernatural island of Aeternum in the 17th century. Okay, but it does have parallels to our own history. So, Aethelgard, sounding very Norse, Norwegian, Viking-esque. The peak of their power was in 1240 to 1319, right? The 17th century. So potentially she could have been there, 300-400 years. Longer than that. So his name may be a hint at something. That there are descendants of Norse people on the island. Which, again, we've got hinted from the cinematics. Watching Aethelgard slowly shrivel in body and spirit, I forced myself into the habit of putting on a hopeful smile no matter how I felt inside. Okay, so she isn't aging, remember? But I forced myself into the habit of putting on a hopeful smile no matter how I felt inside. The whole fake it till you make it thing, maybe that fake hope isn't as fake as she thinks it is, right? Putting on that hopeful smile. So she, even if she has like reservations inside about how watching her son slowly grow old in body and spirit, putting on that hopeful smile is still producing positive energy, right? Saints know I've tried. So she's trying to be hopeful. So is it, I keep getting back, like looking over these lines, these 2 pages, is the eternal life tied to the emotions that the person is displaying and putting out? Could be. Hey Zero, I appreciate the follow. Thank you so much. Hope you're enjoying yourself. I am just going over a lot of the lore. We're making a lot of speculations. We're just reading through some of the lore pages right now. If you have any input, by the way, feel free to chat, and we'll discuss whatever you're gaining from this, or whatever you think. You know, even if it's contradictory to what I'm saying, you know, I'm definitely open to all outlooks of this. For his sake, I risked everything in a desperate bid to escape this island. Okay, so she's tried to escape, but not for her own sake, not for any selfish reason, but for him, she wants to escape. So again, that's more positive emotion, that's selflessness towards her son, where it seems like him saying, you know, she became constable and I couldn't take it, and she's talking to other people and having all these hopeful conversations, and they just don't know how stupid it is. Like, that's a very selfish outlook on how their time is going to go on this island. But as with everything else here, it ended with disappointment. Yet she kept holding that office. So even though she's disappointed and it broke down, she's still holding that office and helping people. So she's putting more positivity out than negativity. For some reason, I still remember the smell of his skin when he was a newborn. But in the years before he left, Aethelgard smelled like a sick old man. Hey, I appreciate the follow, Poseidon. Thank you so much. Aethelgard smelling like a sick old man, as opposed to when he was a newborn, but she can still remember the smell when he was a newborn, right? So up here, where she said she can hardly remember bearing the children, but she can still remember the smell of his skin, which, you know, as humans, we associate heavily to smells with memory, so that's not overly surprising. Aethelgard smelled like a sick old man in the years before he left. So she's remembering the way it was and comparing it to the way it is, right? It reached to the point where I couldn't even get close to him. Now, is that because the smell changed? Like, is she saying here that it reached the point where I couldn't even get close to him because she didn't recognize the smell from when he was a newborn and now he's sick and old? Or is it to the point that she couldn't get close to him because of his attitude and because of how negative and angry he obviously had become, that we gained from the first letter that we read, right? So it's not explicit right here what the reason she couldn't get close to him is. The only thing we can infer is that it had something to do with the smell. But again, if we go back to the other page, it could also be his attitude and be that selfishness that he was presenting, right? I'll never forgive myself for that. I only hope where he is now, he found some measure of peace. So even though he had all that stuff to write, and all that, like, pent-up anger and resentment of him growing old and her staying young, and, you know, all this negative energy pointed towards his mother, she only hopes that he found peace. She only hopes that he is doing well, that he is happy, right? Well, not even so much happy, just not angry, that he's found some peace because of how angry he was. So she obviously knew how angry he was, because she doesn't even wish him happiness. She just wishes him to not be pissed off, right? But let's go one other thing. If we go back and compare these two notes like we have been doing here with that last paragraph, he didn't write this letter to his mother. He wrote this letter to someone named Albert, right? And down here, I thank you for your friendship, Albert. But now I must turn my back on First Light and embrace the darkness. So he's turning his back on Albert. He's turning his back on his mother, and he's turning his back on the settlement. Because he can't be around all these people who have hope. He's lost hope. But he's thanking Albert for his friendship, right? But he's not thanking his mother for that she risked everything to escape the island for his sake. Again, a selfish outlook, an angry outlook, but why? Why does he have so much resentment against Constable Oakes, against his mother? So I think these two lore pages, right here, beyond the fact between these two characters, right, have a lot, just a ton to unpack with how this immortality works on this island. How it affects some people and doesn't affect others. How emotions may play a part in it. How having hope may play a part in it. How resentment, all these negative things that he has going on. I wonder, the one thing I didn't check was the map, right? So let's look at this real quick, just for the sake of comparison, right? So this letter was written by Aethelgard to this Albert person, right? And it was located south of First Light, towards the beach, right? Where we know the shorelines is where a lot of the Lost are. So instead of going north or even west towards Cutlass Keys, Windward, or Monarch's Bluff, right? He went south, knowing the shoreline holds the Lost. So he's turning his back on First Light to embrace the darkness. And he is also, distraught emotionally here. Heading south, was he looking for the Lost? Was he actively wanting to turn into the Lost? Why was he heading south? Because, even if you follow because it's on the road, if you follow the road, like, that road only ends up in the shipwreck area, right? And we already know he's turned his back on First Light, so he's not going towards First Light. He's going away from First Light. So he's going towards the shoreline. He has to be. So was he actively looking for the Lost? Like, is that how this works? He's getting old, he's getting distraught, so he's going there to, sacrifice himself to the forces of evil to become one of the Lost? Is he actively trying to become a Lost? Maybe. We don't know yet, but, it kind of makes sense, right? Where Constable Oakes has written this letter, I'm not even quite sure. Let's see here. Yeah. Constable Oakes has written this letter in the actual settlement, right? So we didn't find this page anywhere along this road here. So if the map has something to do with this story, which I think it does, I think that, again, I think New World's lore is a hidden gem, and I think that every little piece is deliberate. And I think if we really look into it, we're gonna see a deep and fulfilling story, as opposed to what a lot of people think about this story, right? If we look at it in that light, here's the settlement. He's gone down here. He left the page for Albert to find. So he must know that Albert's eventually going to make his way down this direction, right? I don't know why Albert is going down here, but he knows Albert's going to pass through here at some point. So there he goes, and he's going to become lost, I'm assuming. And she has her letter here. If she was actively looking for him, we may expect that letter to be, somewhere further down the trail, right? Or even just somewhere else, like maybe even north, because if she knew that he left, if she still has hope, then, and she thinks that he may, or she hopes that he had found peace, she wouldn't expect him to walk that way. So it kind of makes sense that we wouldn't find the letter down this way. Because if she was going to go looking for him, she would have gone looking for him north or west. Away from the shoreline, where no peace would be found. But up here, where, potentially he could find some area to settle down and find some peace in. So I'm wondering if that has something to do with it. So, as of right now, we have read these 2 lore pages. We have gone on a pretty in-depth little journey here on these 2 lore pages. We've read